We finished last night the chapter. We'll start a new. We finished the parak last night.
Okay, thank you.
Start Hakainas, which is 55b, right on the top of the page. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. We're learning, we should have the basic Mikdash. Okay, so the new chapter starts like this. Little shift in animals. We were talking the whole time about cows. Now we talk about sheep. Kind of strain the deer. Someone brings sheep into a pen. They used to move the pen around so that it would fertilize the fields. The pens were transported. You could transport them. And Vinal b'fanei karoi, and he locked the door. He did his job. He washed it properly. Because somehow the animal anyway got out and it caused some damage. What type of damage? Probably it ate or trampled on something because it's just sheep. So the halacha is pater. And the reason why he's pater is because he did his job he was responsible. And what was he supposed to do? It's not his fault. He did everything. The owner did everything to cover his liability. Right. What happens if it's the other way? If he didn't lock it properly, then he's going to be chayiv. If it's a balayla to a listim, let's say not the door open, he didn't lock it properly, but let's say that the wall itself actually collapsed by night. During the night, the wall collapsed. I should pursue a listim. Or there were robbers that broke in. When the robbers broke in, they left it open. The animal went out and caused damage, then he's going to be putter as well. Places points out that if it breaks down by day, then at a certain point, the owner should have known about it and gone and run and closed it up. But if it breaks down by night, then there's more of an exemption because two answers in Taisvus. Either he doesn't have to bother himself or he didn't know about it. It's your listim. If robbers take it out, remove it from the property, and it causes damage, then listim chayavim, then the robbers are responsible for the damages that the animal causes. It's not that the robbers are stealing it. Maybe they are stealing it, but the point is not that the robbers have to pay for the animal. That of course they have to pay for the animal or return it, but they have to pay for the damages that the animal causes because they become the new, like the new owners, that they become responsible. In the last case, by the way, when the robbers break the wall because they're trying to get in, so then the owner is exempt because it's not his fault. He didn't leave the door open. The robbers did that. But the robbers are also exempt from the damages, not damages to the wall, but damages to that the animal causes, because they didn't actually cause that damage. It's like an indirect. They just left the door open. The animal did the damage. Okay. Over here, the robbers are going to be responsible because they stole the animal. Let's say he left it in a locked pen, but the sun was shining directly on it, and the animals are going to try to jump out or they're going to do something. They're not going to just sit over there in the hot sun. They always have to have some sort of shade. They always make a shade for the animals. He didn't do that. Or he gave it over to someone that wouldn't be responsible to be able to watch it. A deaf mute, an imbecile, or a child. And Zika went out to cause damage, then he's chayev because he did not guard it properly. It's as if he didn't close the door. Well, Nafla Lagina. Let's say it was walking and was walking on the road probably, and it fell onto someone's property down below, on a lower plane than that. Or it was on his own roof and it fell off into the neighbor's garden. Bananas, and then over there, either it landed on something or it ate something. Since the owner was not negligent here, it happened to fall in. The owner wasn't negligent. So therefore, the owner should be exempt. The only thing is that he does have to pay for any benefit that he received. So how does he pay for benefit? So if it ate expensive tomatoes, then heirloom tomatoes, so he only has to pay the value of straw, which is what he normally eats, not what he normally feeds his animal. He doesn't have to pay for those expensive items. His mashinenis, the benefit that he got, that today he doesn't have to feed his animal lunch. However, you're the kedar kavizika, if it went down normally and it caused damage, mishlemish masizika, that's his fault. He should have protected and guarded his animal. How does a person pay for damages that were done in a property, in a field? So shaman you don't actually pay for the tomatoes. You pay for the difference in price between a field that has tomatoes and a field that doesn't have tomatoes, which is much less than the actual tomatoes in the store. Because how much switches from if the field is full or if the field is not full, that's you're buying property. It doesn't switch so much. So that's going to be less. And we learned this from the pasuk that we try to not to cause the perpetrator, which in this case is the defendant, to lose too much. So we give him the lower price. We have a pasuk of bir b'steyacha that we measure it. We measure the loss based on an actual field. Reb Shimon says it depends. Achla pears kamurim, mishalemes pears kamurim. Says it depends if the fruits were ripe. If the fruits were ripe, then we pay like it costs in the market. But however much that is, it's only when the fruits are not ripe that's considered damage to a field. Yeah, Reb Shimon his logic is good. Depends if it's ripe or not. Is it considered part of the field? Okay.
Rabbi.
Sorry.
So it's not about the damage that he did, but how
That's if it wasn't his fault.
Right.
If it's his fault, then it's damage. Yeah, Jonathan.
Oh, do they quote psukim? Like, did they get psukim from the Mishnah here?
The Mishnah itself doesn't have any psukim in it. It's all based on psukim. But the Mishnah itself, the way our Mishnah is and has been edited, is that it just tells us straight laws. Even though these laws are the oral law that was originally accompanying psukim, the way that our Mishnah is, it's extracted all the psukim, basically all the psukim. Yeah, it's rare to find the pasuk.
Thank you.
The Mishnah quoting. I think Reb David Tzvi Hoffman wrote a sefer. Their Erste Mishnah, like what the Mishnah looked like originally. But I think I don't know if he wrote it in German. I think he wrote it in German. What is considered that you lock the door properly? Like how properly is properly? What do you 1 lock, 2 locks, 3 locks? Like what do you remember in New York? So the doors have like 4 locks on them. They have a bolt, and then they have another. Then they have this, like they call it a police lock. You put a stick in the it's like a little thing on the floor, and it pushes against the door. You could keep an army out, at the. So anyway, what's considered karoi? What's considered you lock the door properly? Well, if it can stand a moderate wind, a regular wind, a common wind, that's considered properly. If it can't stand a common wind, then that's not considered properly. Okay, so we've just determined that he didn't really put up hurricane, stuff. He locked the door. It could stand the common wind. So Amar Mani Bar Patish says, "Man Tanamud b'Sagalei b'Shmir Plusa." We're going to call this a Shmir Plusa. We're on 55B. Who says that you don't really need hurricane windows, hurricane doors to protect your animals from going out and cause damage? This is called Shmir Plusa. You only need a reasonable. Who holds that? And we're talking about a muad. Why are we talking about a muad? Because we're talking about a sheep that's shein in regel, which pays full price. That's called a muad. It's something that was forewarned. It always does that. So who holds that a muad doesn't need anything more than that? That's satisfactory to make him exempt from any payments. That's what the Mishnah said. If he locks it properly, he's exempt from all the damages. Kamara says that it's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. We had this before, a few pages ago. The Tanana was started in the Mishnah Kosher Balav B'Meisera. Here we're talking about an ox. If the owner ties up the ox with a rope, Benol Fun of Karai, or he locks it properly, and it goes out and causes damage. Reb Meir says that whether it's a tam, whether it's a mud, he's chayiv, because he's chayiv even if he did a guarding. He would have to guard it even better to protect it to be exempt. Then it would have to be like a total inus. Over here, it's not enough of a guarding. It's going to be chayiv. Now in our Mishnah, he locked the door properly and he's pater. So our Mishnah doesn't fit with Reb Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says tam chayiv mud pater. Rabbi Yehuda says this we said was counterintuitive, that the tam you have to watch it more than you have to watch the mud. The logic that we gave for it, which is not like written in the text, but the logic that we gave is that maybe people understand when they see a muad that they should also be protecting. They see a tam, they didn't even know that they should be protecting. They're protecting themselves. So anyway, there's more liability on the tam. There's more responsibility to guard the tam than there is to guard the muad. So Rabbi Yehuda says that a moderate guarding of a muad is pater. That would fit with our Mishnah. Shenemar, and he has a verse for it. That the owner didn't guard it. Vishamar who said, but this person did guard it. So since the pasuk says that you're going to only chayiv if you don't guard it, and this person absolved himself from that by actually doing some sort of guarding, so he's exempt. Naftali, you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Is this relevant to, let me ask a different way. Is the guarding, what if the damage, he had an obligation to guard because it was muad for, say, goring?
Right.
And it gets out and it doesn't gore. It rubs against something and ruins it that way.
Uh-huh.
So he was negligent, but it's not related to the damage that was caused.
Right.
Is the Gemara going to discuss that issue?
I think we had when do we consider him negligent because of one thing? Remember we had this a few days ago? He was negligent for one thing, but that's not what happened. Something else happened.
All right.
If I remember correctly, when it does something that is not what it was made for, like he would pay half.
I think it was about intent.
Uh-huh.
It seems like logically it could go either way.
It brought the example that it rubbed on the wall and the wall collapsed. It didn't intend to break the wall. It just rubbed on it.
Yeah. Now, 1 second. It turns out that in that example, it's not perfectly. It's a muad for goring, but it turns out that it's also a muad for rubbing on the wall, because rubbing on the wall is its an enjoyment. So it's a muad for that, because that would be an example of regal or shane, something that would be shane probably. So it's what the Gemara is doing here is it's comparing the muad of goring to the muad of shane and regal, and we're saying that since shane and regal is always muad,
Always muad.
and so the muad for goring, according to Rabbi Yehuda, is needs a less watching, so that would fit over here. The muad of Keren, the muad of Keren is satisfactory with the Shmir of Chusa, so the muad of Shein V'Regel would be also satisfactory with the Shmir of Chusa, and that's why he's exempt over here when he just uses a. Yeah, I think in your question, Reb Naftali, I think the Gemara had to like ended off with a teiko or something. If we consider it automatically negligent for everything, even though that's not exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's Rabbi Yehuda. That was B'Shomer Jose. He guarded it. Rabbi Lezer mainly Shmir Lasakin. Rabbi Lezer says, I assume it's Rabbi Lezer, because Reb Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Lezer would be Rabbi Lezer ben Shmuel. These are all the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. What does it say over there? Do you have it spelled out? Does it say Eliezer or Elazar? Eliezer. Now Eliezer is 2 generations back. No, Rabbi Eliezer is always Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus, and so that it doesn't match. It doesn't match up on the charts, but it just says Reish Aleph here. So the Mishnah before. What did the Mishnah say before? Remember where that was?
Later on,
Where was the Mishnah before?
a few lines down, it says Eliezer.
Yeah, in the Mishnah before it also says Reish Aleph. Yeah, that's something else. That's that when it says Rebbe Lazar later, that's going to be Rebbe Lazar ben Pedas. That's an Amira. That's not a Tana. That's the Talmudic sage. Now we're quoting a Mishnaic sage. Okay. Anyway, if I was editing, I would say it's Rebbe Lazar, but no one asked me. I'm sorry? Oh, really? It doesn't have a yud? And it spells it out and it doesn't have a yud? Very good. Very good. In the Quran, it says Rebbe Lazar. Okay, so we have a slight problem here. It's not a real problem. It's a slight problem that turns out that our Mishnah, an anonymous Mishnah, doesn't fit with Reb Meir. It only fits with Reb Yehuda. Because according to Reb Meir, you'd be responsible if you closed the gate and somehow it broke through, because that gate wasn't hurricane proof. Yeah. You needed a shmir ma'ula according to Reb Meir. And okay, so it fits with Reb Yehuda. It's a slight problem. Usually we like the Mishnah to fit with Reb Meir. The Gemara now says, I feel the Reb Meir. Actually, if you want, the Mishnah could fit with Reb Meir. Shani Shein V'Regel that Torah miyata b'shmirasan. Shein V'Regel is a different sort of muad than Keren. Keren, when it comes to goring, that's a muad where Reb Meir says you have to have a real strong guarding. But Shein V'Regel, Reb Meir would agree is a different sort of muad, and over there he would agree, like sort of to Reb Yehuda, that you need a less of guarding. Damar Rabbi Lazar, because Rabbi Lazar says this is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas, the student of Rabbi Yochanan. Some say that it was actually a brisa. It says, there's 4 things that the Torah diminished, lessened the guarding, the responsibility to guard. We're going to explain how this plays out. But it means the pit, the fire, the enjoyment. What does it mean, miyata? It said instead of guarding it, a shmir ma'ula, you only have to do a shmir pchusa. The Torah diminished it. By the pit, it's written, the person will dig a pit. I'm sorry, it starts off with opening a pit. Or he will dig a pit and he won't cover it. See, it says he won't cover it. Haki so, but if he does cover it, it's going to be pater, it's going to be exempt. Now, it should have said, and he doesn't fill it in. At least on the one that says that if he digs it, he should fill it in. Why does it say if he doesn't fill it in? It only says and he doesn't cover it. That means that you don't actually need to, in order to cover your responsibility, cover your obligations here, you don't need to fill it in. You can just cover it. Even though you dug it, you just have to put it, which means that a moderate guarding would also work.
We had a discussion like if it was like safe for like smaller animals,
Right.
bigger animals.
Right. You'd have to put on a covering that would be for everything that would walk by. Yeah. Okay, Aish, we have the same thing by fire. It says the Ksiv Shalom Shalom Amaver Sabeira. The one that lit the fire has to pay. Adavid Ken Maver. It's only if he lit it in a way of like he's an arson, like he's starting fires. But if he was trying to protect it, then he would be exempt. See, the Torah diminishes the responsibility. Shane the Ksiv Bir B'Steachar Adavid Ken Ovir. By the enjoyment that the animal has, it says that it consumes in another field. That means, the way the Gemara is learning this, is that he actually makes it consume. He like brings it there to consume in another field. But if he doesn't do that, because he locked it off, that would be fine. He would be not responsible. Regel, trampling, he sends it. Adavid can v'shilach. It has to actually send it. Vitanya, and we have a brayse v'shilach zeh regel, that when it says the word v'shilach in the pasuk, it's referring to trampling. We even have a verse that says it's sending of the feet of the ox and the donkey. Ubiyar in consumption, consumes Shane, that's referring to the enjoyment that it has when it eats. Until the gullah, which I think meant the tooth, until the tooth consumes entirely, right? we said that it pulls it out of the ground. Some of the animals, they instead of crunching on it, they yank it out. Okay, time of David can b'shilach beer. What's the reason why he's obligated to pay for those two types of damages? Is because he did it in a way of negligence. But if he didn't do it like in a way of negligence and then he would be exempt. Okay, what we just got now is that there is possibility that the Mishnah is really Reb Meir, where even though Reb Meir says that you're not off the hook if you only did a regular wall, a regular closing of the gate for a muad, but that's only a muad of Keren. That's only if it goes out and gores. But if the damage that was done was consumption or trampling, over there you're going to be exempt with just the regular closing of the gate. Because Shein in Regel, the Torah clearly says that you don't need to protect it the same way they have to protect the other animals. So that it could be that it's the opinion of Reb Meir, which would mean that our Mishnah is Reb Meir. Now what comes out, let's take a look. What would come out is that when our Mishnah says that's only because it was sheep that were put into a pen and you lock the gate, that's where you're going to be pater. But if our Mishnah is really Reb Meir, if it goes out and gores, you're going to be chayav. Because for goring, you needed a better protection. It was only because it was consuming or trampling. Amar Rabba. Rabba says, Mastisin Nami Dayaka, the Mishnah is also precise. The Ktani Tzayin, because it says sheep. Michti. Let's take a look. B'shor Kaskin Vasi. The entire Baba Kamma, till page 55b, was always talking about oxen. Everything was oxen. This Nishar, let it continue talking about oxen. Maishna Diktani Tzayin, why do you all of a sudden start talking about sheep? Why do you switch gears here? Lav Mishum Dater Mieta B'Shmirasan. It must be because you wanted to tell me the special halacha that applies to sheep. What it means is because Lav Mishum Dekan Keren like Ksiva Bey, Shein V'Regelu Ksiva Bey. Because sheep would be more common, or it's written by the sheep that it would consume or it would trample, not that it would gore. It's coming to teach us that Shein v'Regel, that are muad, nevertheless have the lesser payment. Nevertheless, they have the lesser, not the lesser payment, lesser responsibility when it comes to payment, because they only have to do a shmira pchusa. Okay. Tanya was taught in a brayso from Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua, this is Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, the teacher of Rabbi Akiva.
It seems like options. If you lock your box up between serious locking up and it breaks out, it does damage.
You're not responsible.
Why not?
Because your responsibility is to protect your property from causing damage. You did everything possible.
Other than killing it, you did
Well,
everything.
The question is it my responsibility? At the end of the day, the other person was still wrong, right?
What do you mean? The victim was wrong? No.
Yeah, exactly. The victim was wrong. The fact that you had a 2-foot chain on it doesn't mean the victim is not wrong anymore.
Oh, it was wrong.
Wrong,
Oh, okay,
that's
wrong.
what you said, yeah.
Okay.
Wrong.
There's two reasons why a person has to pay for damages. Either his property is considered an extension of himself, and it's as if he caused the damage, and so therefore he has to pay. The other possibility is that he was irresponsible. And the reason why he has to pay is because he was irresponsible. Now, once he covers that and he becomes responsible, what's the difference between the two is a little bit vague. But once he covers his responsibility, so then it's as if whatever happened here was considered an accident, and then he's not responsible for payment.
Maybe what he's saying
You're
is
taking
that
two sides- you're
once,
taking two sides.
what you're probably saying is like you had a car accident. It's not your fault. You still got to pay.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Of course, we're taking two sides of the coin because say the animal is an extension of myself. But at the end of the day, I'll do it later. So that's not the animal's not really an extension of myself. It's me, then there wouldn't be any mistakes don't apply with it.
No, it's actually it's not true. Although the Mishnah says Adam muad la'ilam, but by a real linus, he's going to be exempt. Yeah, let's say someone parks his car on a hill and he puts on the parking brake like he's supposed to, and he turned the wheel the way he's supposed to. He did all the stuff which we don't know about over here in Florida, but in San Francisco, they know how to park the car on the hill. He did everything he's supposed to, and the brakes just, went, and the sidewalk, I don't know, didn't protect it, and it went and it smashed into another car. So should he be responsible?
Well,
He did everything to
No,
protect.
it was
According to the
insurance.
Gemara, he
It's
would
not
not be
matter.
responsible.
You're responsible.
According to the Gemara, he won't be responsible. He covered all his he did everything he was
So what
supposed
do we
to
say
do.
to
It's
the
a God
person who
act.
was damaged?
I'm sorry.
Your house was flooded?
I'm sorry. Yeah, your house was flooded. It could have been a meteor.
Should have been the people who made the car.
Okay.
Now that's Shalom is bringing up. Could be to complain to the manufacturer. That could be an issue. That's another issue. Maybe the manufacturer was irresponsible. But the guy.
It sounds like Rabbi Meir believes in absolute liability. Seems like he's always holding the person liable.
Yeah, but it seems unless he did a shmira ma'ula, unless he did a strong protection. I think I missed Rebbe Loza. I was focusing on the name, and I didn't spell it out. Rebbe Loza says in Lishmir Sakin. Rebbe Loza says that you have to kill if any sharamud, you have to kill it. This is once it's forewarned, you can't protect it at all. He would be by a sharamud. That would absolute liability. Anytime you have a muad ox, you're responsible no matter what. You should have killed it.
Regarding Shin and Reiko, everything is forewarned.
Exactly. That was our question. That it can't be Rebbe Lazar, it can't be Rebbe Meir, it could only be Rebbe Yehuda. And then we switched and we said that Shein and Regal is a different type of muad than Karen. Okay. Yeah.
If a robber opens the gate and then the animal just goes in, is the owner chayav?
Of course, the Dana.
In his own property, he should be exempt, right? He should be exempt in his own
Animal's
property.
on the fence of the line.
Outside the property?
On the
Oh,
edge.
so 1 second. No. He's going to be,
Like,
the owner's going to be
continues the fence.
exempt because he closed the gate.
The robber can't open the gate. It's his responsibility.
But if it's a Tom, but 1 second, this is complicated because the gate wasn't a protection for a Karen. Because the gate was only a protection for Shein and Regal. For Karen, for Goring, you needed a better protection.
And with Rabbi Yehuda,
According to Rabbi Yehuda, not. But if our Mishnah is Reb Meir, then it's going to be responsible.
I have another question.
Yeah.
If someone has a pit in their house and then the robber brings the animal in because they want to keep it and the animal falls, what happens?
So since they weren't supposed to be there, so the owner of the house doesn't have to pay. The owner of the pit doesn't have to pay.
His cow.
So 1 second. Whose cow fell into the pit? The owner of the house? Oh, so you're saying, okay, who's he supposed to pay it to? Would he pay the damages to? Oh, you're saying, does the robber have to pay?
There's two of them.
The should.
The robber opened the gate and the animal goes in and falls in a pit. Is that your case? The robber is not going to be responsible for this because he didn't do anything on purpose. He's not responsible for any damages that the animal causes. But for the loss of the animal, that we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about the loss of the animal. Right? We're going to learn about the loss of the animal now.
If it had a water and it destroyed all the water, would it change anything?
Would the robber have to pay?
Yeah.
No, the robber would also be punished because he didn't do it direct damage. He would have to do direct damage. Yeah, but we're going to learn when we turn the page that the robber gets responsibility of the animal since the owner isn't there to watch it. He takes on that. We'll see in a moment.
So if you get fall on something, you break something, not chayav.
If
The owner does something on the floor.
if the person wasn't supposed to be there, he's not chayav. If the person's allowed to be there, then he is chayav. Yeah, a bar in your own rishus where no one's
Yeah, you
allowed
can leave leg
in,
on your foot.
where no one's allowed in, you're going to be pater. Where people are allowed in, then it's considered a bar, like hifker rishus.
No, if someone's walking to your house.
Is he
and-
allowed to be there?
No,
Okay,
you just slip on,
so the owner doesn't have to pay.
and he falls and breaks stuff.
Oh,
Because
Rob
you're
oh,
not responsible.
oh, yeah. Okay, I hear.
Because he just didn't
yeah.
do the direct damage. He flipped on something. Made him
Uh-huh.
do it.
I think, and whenever someone is not supposed to be there, I think he's always going to be responsible. A Ganav is always responsible. If this, I'm not allowed to use this pencil and an accident happens, I'm responsible for the damages, even though it was an accident. But since I'm a Ganav, so I'm responsible automatically.
You
The
just said
liability
that
just goes up.
if it hurt the person who walked in, you wouldn't have to pay them. What about the case when the person was chopping wood and when it killed the person who just walked in and died? Then the owner would be
That's
hired.
because they were both allowed to be there, right?
No, you said that the one guy just walked in without permission.
1 second. I thought that was
Yeah.
by a yard. Yeah, 1 second. If there was someone that was chopping wood and someone walked in, what was the halacha?
He was hired, he had to pay.
It said that.
In that case, it made a difference if the guy that was chopping the wood knew that guy was there.
Then he didn't.
If he didn't know, well, he would be exempt, right? If he didn't know that the person was there, he would be exempt.
He never said that.
Didn't say that? Check it out. You have to check it out. Okay. Let me over here 1 second.
He was aware, because if he was aware, he should have been more careful if the person was there. And if he
Right.
wasn't aware,
Was that in Baba Kamma? I think so. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yeshua says, there's 4 things. Gives a number to it. That if a person does them, he's exempt in our courts, but he's going to be responsible for the courts of heaven. I don't know what that means, but I guess if he wants to cover his bases in heaven, he should pay. That's probably what it means. This is what it is. If someone breaks a wall in front of his friend's animal and the animal goes and runs away, he did not kill the animal. He did not lose the animal. He just opened up the gate, or he broke the fence. Someone bends someone else's grain in front of a fire, and it ends up getting burnt. So he caused it to get closer to the fire. So he doesn't have to pay. He didn't burn it, but because he caused it to get closer, he's responsible in heaven for that. If someone hires false witnesses to testify, he's not the guy that testified. He just told other people to testify, and he hired them. So he's not responsible to pay for whatever damages they caused because they lied, but he is responsible in heaven. We'll see in the Gemara. If someone has testimony that he could testify, and he doesn't testify, and because of that, it could have caused the loss. So he's not responsible.
It's only to help him.
It's only he could have defended him or whatever. So he could have done this and he didn't. So he's responsible in heaven. Amar Mar, let's go and explain these cases. The master taught, that means that we're going to go back and explain something that was taught in the Brisa by Rabbi Yeshua, and we'll analyze it. It says, if someone breaks a wall in front of his friend's animal, what's the case? We said that he's exempt. The animal runs out and gets lost. Are we talking about that the wall was strong? He should be responsible in court. Taisvus points out he's responsible for the wall. Rashi also says that. He's responsible for the wall, not for the animal. But because he's responsible for the wall, the Gemara shouldn't have said, Pater Midini Adam. You're not Pater Midini Adam. You can't say Pater unless you're 100% Pater. Since over here, I know he's Pater for the animal, but since he's Chayav on the wall, you can't use the word Pater. So Midini Adam Namachav should be Chayav in our court, at least on the wall. Ella, because we're talking about that the wall was on its way down anyway. And this guy actually came in and probably helped him out by taking the wall down. So that's why he's going to be exempt for the worthless wall, and he's also exempt for the animal. Amar Mar, another case. Master taught. We're going through the 4 cases. If someone bends the stalks of grain in front of a fire, What's the case? Are we talking about that the fire is going to reach it with a normal wind? So what he did was he put it in the fire's path. He caused it to get burnt. Why is he exempt? He is the one that caused it to get. We're talking about that because of what he did, it reached it with an abnormal wind. So even though he was involved in it, but you can't hold him responsible because it was really an abnormal wind that came along and caused it to get burned. Ravashi has a very interesting explanation for this. He says, Taman itmar, it was stated regarding Taman. Taman is, there's a special exemption when it comes to fire, that anything in the field that was covered over, the person that started the fire doesn't have to pay. So what happened over here is this guy,
not necessarily going to get burnt.
it doesn't say. It just said whenever it's covered over, he doesn't have to pay. Someone starts a fire in his property and it goes to this, it burns his friend's haystack, and in the haystack was the shovels and all the stuff that he hid over there. He doesn't have to pay for those shovels because it was covered over. Now, what this guy did was he covered over his friend's grain or his friend's whatever. So comes along the fire that the neighbor burned. The neighbor has to pay. The neighbor has to pay for all the damages. But because this guy, this tzaddikel that covered over his things, now the neighbor doesn't have to pay for those things. So he caused a damage. Like now insurance won't cover the or whatever. So
also Taman is the one who's covering it up.
He's covering it over. He's causing a loss because now he's not going to get the payment from the neighbor that started the fire. Mishum de Shavitam Beish, he caused it, that now it's covered, and now the person doesn't have to pay. Okay, so that he is not responsible for that in our courts, but he would be responsible for that loss in heavenly court. Amar Mar, Master taught us, someone hires false witnesses. What's the case? Did he hire the false witnesses to testify in court for himself, and now he became a rich guy because of those false witnesses? What does it mean? He doesn't have to pay. He has to pay back all the money that he made illegally. He should pay that. He's 100% responsible for that. It must be talking about that he hired false witnesses to testify to get his friend some money. So he is exempt. What about the friend? Friend disappeared. Okay. Next case. I'm sorry.
In the case of the hidden burn thing, he doesn't pay because they were covered, or is because like it was abnormal, like for it to be.
It doesn't say. It's a special halacha. The things that are covered are exempt. We're going to actually learn it later on in this chapter. If someone knows testimony and he doesn't testify, he's exempt in court from all the losses that he caused, but he's not exempt in the heavenly court. But my Eskina, what are we dealing with? Are we talking about that there were two people there? In other words, this guy that would show up, he would actually cause that justice should be done because he would have to pay. The person would have to pay because there would be two witnesses. So Pshita, of course he's responsible in heaven. Dairaisahu, it's a biblical obligation for him to testify. If he doesn't testify, he carries his guilt. That means that he should be testifying. So of course he's obligated in heaven. Ella Bechad, we're talking about that we don't have two witnesses. We only have one witness. You hear what's going on? We only have one witness. So one witness doesn't cause a monetary payment. So he didn't really cause a monetary loss by not testifying. The only thing is, he could have caused a monetary loss because the one witness makes the other person, the defendant, have to take an oath. And maybe the guy wouldn't have taken the oath and he would have paid. So there was potential for a loss if the guy would have been honest. This guy didn't want to go to court. He didn't go to court to testify. So because of that, he caused the loss. It doesn't say clearly that we don't know clearly that what the guy would have done, but potentially caused the loss. He's exempt in our courts, but he's obligated in heaven. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yeshua, you only have 4 cases of this indirect damages. The Suleka, there's no more. Vayeka, I have so many cases. Nishbar. Yeah, we have a bunch of, that's the siman of the following cases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If someone does work with the water of a paraduma, or in other words, the drawn water that you have to draw from a living sort, from a spring, or with the ashes of the paraschatas, he does some work with it. He probably uses it as a weight on the one side of a scale.
Mm.
It causes. Paras chatas is maybe the animal, not the ashes, because he actually has the animal do work. Yeah. So if he has the animal do work, so then it goes down in price. Right? It gets disqualified. So why didn't Rabbi Yeshua say that one? Number 2. This we had before. Someone puts poison in front of his friend's animal. He's exempt. The animal didn't have to eat it, but it was indirect damage. So that's another case. We have another case. It's interesting. In our Mishnah, we had if someone gives an animal over to be watched by a Cheir Shaita V'Katan, we said that he's responsible. Over here, if someone gives a fire to a Cheir Shaita V'Katan, he's not responsible. And the reason is because he didn't give him the fire and the wood. He just gave him, over here, I think we're talking about, he just gave him a torch without anything to burn. So he's not responsible. The guy, the child had to go and find the other things to be able to burn it. So he's not responsible. That should have been another case that Rabbi Yeshua said. But we have another case. If someone like blows into his friend's ear, and because of that, causes the damage. But because it was indirect, he didn't actually hit him. He just frightened him. So he is patur medini adam. He is exempt in court. That should be another indirect damage that is chayav in the heavenly court that Rabbi Yeshua should have mentioned. But in the last case, the 5th case, if his jug broke in a public property, he doesn't pick it up. If his camel fell, but he didn't stand it up. It's a machlekes Reb Meir and the Chachamim if he's exempt. Reb Meir says he's chayav, the Chacham say he's exempt. Over there, we explained it was mafker nezaka of lach and filosinus or something. It fell down by mistake, and then he decided not to keep the shards. That was the whole discussion. Yeah. So they says he's exempt. So why doesn't Rabbi Yeshua say all of these cases? It says you're right. I know there's a lot of cases. Rabbi Yeshua was only telling me the chiddush. In those 4 cases, what could I have said? That in the heavenly court you should be exempt as well. Because it's so far removed, you shouldn't even be responsible for heaven on the heavens account. Kamash Malan, that you're still responsible. And it goes through the cases to explain why. Someone broke the wall in front of his friend's animal, the animal ran away. If you remember, we said that it was a weak wall. Since that wall was standing to be broken down, so he actually did the guy a favor. What did he do? He broke the wall down. He doesn't have to pay the demolition crew for breaking the wall down. He should be exempt also from heaven. He did the guy a favor, and heaven holds him responsible. Kamash Malan is coming to tell us that you have to be more careful when you break the wall down.
So these 4 are not
to say that you're exempt.
It's to be mechayev.
Yeah. The chiddush over here is that you're b'din shemayim. Someone that bends the stalks. I could have said, what could I have said? I had no clue. I shouldn't have touched these things anyway. But I had no clue that an abnormal wind was going to come. I should be totally exempt from that. That's totally not my. I had no way of knowing that. Not a meteorologist, and I don't have any way of knowing. So Kamash Malan comes to tell us that it's Chai B'din Shemayim. What about according to Ravashi? His example was that he covered something over, so therefore the neighbor that lights the fire doesn't have to pay for those damages. So I actually covered it because I was trying to protect it from the fire. And now you're telling me that I'm Chai B'din Shemayim. I'm the good guy. I'm the good Samaritan. I saw your things were getting burnt. I tried to cover the expensive ones. Kamash Malan, that he's going to be chayiv. Taisvus over here is amazing. Taisvus. He says, how could you say that he's chayiv and kisui kisise? How could you say that he's chayiv b'din shemayim when the guy's claiming that his intention was to protect? He's a good Samaritan, and shemayim knows what his intention was. Why should he be chayiv in shemayim? Because of if his intention was really to protect the guy, and he's a good Samaritan, like he was protecting the person's property. So Taisvus says that even if you have good intentions, but you still have to be more careful not to cause any damage with all of your good intentions. Interesting, Taishos.
Here it looks like the intention is good till now, because in the part of the grain, it says that even though he intended to do damage, since it was an abnormal wind, like he's not liable, but his intention was to do damage.
Whose intention was?
The person that moved the grain.
No,
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 the opposite.
no. His intention, we don't know. It's saying, what, in the notes, it's saying that he intended to cause damage? Although he intended to damage the grain, see Rashi, since it is unlikely. Okay, let me see that in Rashi.
Actually says he was trying to cover it, so it shouldn't go.
Anyway, but I don't have a Rashi on
You're
that.
talking about the farm.
I don't have a Rashi on that. I don't know which Rashi they're referring to. Rashi 55b, Divra Maskal HaKaifif. 55b HaKaifif. Oh, it sounded like Kadesha Tvar Ba'ish. Oh, you see that the Rashi before says that he had bad intention. So that, It's funny why. I have a question on this because in the next one we're ignoring his intention because thing. Okay.
And same
Okay,
here.
let's leave it. Let's leave it. I hear no over here. It's not over here. He's doing something with good intentions.
But it ignores the intention, and then here it's ignoring the intention also. In this case, he intended to do damage, and he's positive.
Oh, so you're saying on both sides it's ignoring
Yeah.
it. Very interesting. Okay. Where are we holding? Haseicher. Haseicher de sheker, someone that hires false witnesses. Nami. Also, Mal de Tema, I could have said, this guy was totally not supposed to listen to me. The fact that he listened to me, that's all his fault. I'm not responsible. Now, this is really only because he hired them. If he would have just told them without any money involved, he'd be even exempt b'din shemayim. But because he's paying, he's expecting them to do something. So then he's chai b'din shemayim. Kamashlan Tesis points it out. Like someone that knows testimony and he doesn't testify. What is it that he could have said? Me Amar, the chihavi asina or Mesahadina le Mesadina le have a maida. How was I supposed to know that if I would have come, I'm only one guy. If I would have come, that the person would have admitted to his guilt and it. Maybe I would have caused him to swear falsely. And so therefore I should be exempt.
And if a fire breaks out from two different property that burns the property in between, how do you pay?
You probably have to split it.
But it's possible that one burnt it first. Like certain parts burnt first.
Yeah, they would have to
Like
estimate.
one burnt the field and one burnt the house.
They would have to estimate
That's why I have investors.
who caused the damage. You'd have to work
See
that
which
out.
fire was lit by which.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can't just connect the fires. It's still a way to check.
I don't know. So Kamashlan that it's going to be chayiv. Okay. If it's a balayla, well, this I guess I have to leave it over here. Okay. Well, best is Hashem will learn on Sunday.
I'll be in Massachusetts.
Back to traveling. You had a nice extended
Yeah.
home